Hey, welcome to another episode of the Icarus Idea. Thank you so much for listening to the first episode of 2021. Woo! We're recording this in 2020, but that's fine. No one ever needs to know. It's a new year. We got a lot of cool stuff, cool new stuff. There's a new animation on our YouTube videos. There's a channel trailer coming up, which is super duper awesome. But I can do a big intro. I don't think that is a very good idea. Bram, would you be so kind to introduce today's guest?
Let me do the big intro then. Because today we're talking to a really nice guest. Our guest for this episode did a lot of things we found out during our research sessions, or as yours likes to call it, our stalk sessions. And this guest studied a lot of things, starting with computer science, philosophy, fine arts, and finally ended with a PhD in industrial design at the University of Eindhoven. And nowadays, he's the creative director of Next Nature Network, a network of makers, thinkers, educators debating about our future with biology and technology. At this moment, he's working on a project which is a virtual reality time machine, which we'll definitely talk about during this podcast. So welcome, Koert van Mensvoort.
Thank you, Bram, and hello, Joris. Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being on our show.
Yeah, exactly.
How are you doing?
Well, I'm great, I must say, yes. Especially considering circumstances that we're still in the situation with the virus. Although that's interesting, as we are recording a bit early for a podcast later.
Yeah.
I already feel as if I'm stepped into a time machine. Where will the world go?
Maybe there's no world to present this podcast to in 3 months.
That's getting dark.
That's the worst case scenario.
Maybe we're all walking freely again, going to concerts. Who knows?
Let's get into the first question right away. The first question that we had, Koert, is you studied computer science, philosophy, then fine arts, and then after your third study you decided that also a PhD in industrial design was necessary. Now we're wondering, why did you decide to also do industrial design engineering?
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, well, that's quite easy. First, a bit of background. As a teenager, I was a whiz kid. So I was programming video games, being quite successful at it. And then you think, what should I study? Okay, yeah, computer science, right? Because I'm an advanced programmer, makes sense. But I did that and I missed the visual creative part because computer science is very creative, but the visual part in being creative in making video games was not so much in that study. So then in parallel, I thought, okay, I want to be Picasso, I go to art school, something completely different. And then I realized that with subscribing or paying the college fee only once, you could do multiple studies. I understand that's still possible. And so I did multiple studies and I decided to also do philosophy just because that interested me. So I was a bit all over the place and it also felt a bit schizophrenic at times because if you are on Tuesday amidst computer science students and then on Wednesday you are in art school and amidst art school students, well, I can tell you it's a different audience.
Yeah, probably.
So it was a bit split up, but it worked for me. And then only later, after I had finished my studies, of course, you get to work. And then, at a certain point, I came into the field of industrial design and I was asked there to be a researcher and a teacher. That fitted nicely because basically I did the broad thing and then, I ended up there somewhere in the middle. And as I was connected to the university as already an assistant professor, so then I had to, you say, okay, normally you have a PhD when you become an assistant professor, but they hired me already. And then I did the PhD some years after. So that's how it went.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I think that would be a very, let's say, basic or fundamental approach to industrial design. It's a combination of technology with, you could say, art, I think.
Yeah, creativity, art, yes.
In the meantime, we saw you started Next Nature Network. Can you please explain, because I explained it really short in the introduction, but I guess you can say a lot more about it.
Well, this is about 15 years ago. I did all my studies and then I thought like, okay, what am I going to do? What big topic I want to work on? Because I was basically interested in everything and nothing else. And then at a certain point, I realized the biggest story of our time is that technology becomes so all around us that we start to perceive it as a nature of its own, like the next nature. And then, for me, a light went on, and I thought, this is really a big story of our time. This is something that I'm capable of exploring. It's also bigger than myself. You cannot do it on your own, so you have to work with others. And then I started collaborating and exploring the topic of Next Nature, and that quite organically grew into this organization, Next Nature Network, which now has paying members in over 40 countries. And we create exhibitions, publications, and they go all over the world, all around this topic, like how are basically technology and biology, how are they, merging in this time, and how do we as humans want to play a positive role in it?
So you have like the topic, I saw on your site, meat, for example, and you're just going to discuss what's going to happen next.
Yes. So the Next Nature is the philosophy. That's the big story. You could say that's the tree that grows, but then there's also fruit on the tree, and that fruit those are these concrete projects. So you mentioned the example of meat. We studied at a certain point. I started studying the idea that you could grow meat without having to slaughter an animal. Right. So people call it in vitro meat or cultured meat or lab meat. You only take some cells from the animal and you grow them outside of the animal into muscle tissue, and then you create your meat. Well, scientists were working on that already, and then I immediately realized, okay, this is also on the border between natural, because the cells, they grow themselves, but then also utterly artificial, that you would grow the cells outside of an animal. So it's also this tension between nature and technology. So that's a relevant topic for us to work on. We also made, I have it here, we made the world's first in vitro meat cookbook. Some years ago.
Yeah, you described that in a talk, I think, as 28 recipes that you can't make yet, right?
Yeah, recipes you cannot cook yet. Yeah, indeed. So it's a future cookbook to explore what does it bring us? So that question we asked, to make the technology more tangible for society at large, I would say. Because in general, every new invention or every new technology delivers us also new products and new cultures. And I think also for industrial designers to be aware of these kind of dynamics, it's quite important, because as industrial designers, you are the people who also bring these inventions into society.
Yeah. And I guess getting inspired or told what new technologies are available can inspire you even more to find new solutions.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Is that, let's say, the core of what Next Nature Network does? It finds these, so to say, revolutionary inventions and then speculates on what the consequences are?
Yeah, this is indeed quite often our method, the method we use.
It seems that a lot of what you're doing is, just as you mentioned, is this, so to say, extrapolation of trends of technology that you witness now. We thought, okay, Bram and I, we can grab a beer, we can go sit on a couch or a balcony somewhere on a Friday night, talk about how the future might look, and then a lot of garbage comes out. But you and the Next Nature Network are taken very seriously on this, let's say, field. So we were wondering, how do you actually come up with predictions or answers to questions that make sense instead of
garbage?
Yeah, garbage.
Yes. It's an excellent question. And I think you need to filter your garbage at a certain point. You need that creative moment and that point where you just let everything flow and all the associations, because that's a creative moment. But then at a certain point, you also need to look like, how feasible is this? Or is it just bullshit? And then it's not something you want to delve into. Because when we develop all the ideas, and then we also talk to more rigid, fundamental scientists and experts in a certain technological domain, and we ask them to rate, for instance, the feasibility of the ideas. And sometimes you're surprised that you think this is not possible, and then they tell you, oh no, yeah, we're working on this. But in the team, it's also an act of balance, because I also have some creatives working in a team who are typically more, they just want to make special effects, they want to make fancy science fiction kind of graphics and or animation, and they really don't care about technological feasibility. It's just not in their mindset. And we have the more rigid people who say like, hey, is this hard science? So, and this is in the end, it's nothing new. If you look at science fiction, then there's also a distinction between hard science fiction and soft science fiction. I think Star Wars is more soft science fiction and Star Trek is a little bit more hard science fiction.
Okay.
In the sense that at least there's an attempt made to connect it to actual science.
And you are going for the hard science fiction in this case?
Yeah, we need to go for the hard science fiction because we want to be a radar for potential futures. But futures that are just fantasies, well, you can scare people with it or you can make them dream. It can be somewhat helpful, but it becomes way more relevant if there's actually technological story underneath, right? And that you know how feasible it is. Not only the future fantasies, but the potential futures, and to make them very tangible so that we can have a better conversation about what future we actually want.
Yeah, we're talking about like the actual future, not the fantasies.
Yes, although you cannot predict the future, and sometimes a fantasy turns into a reality. That's quite surprising. I remember at one time we had a future vision where you would charge your mobile phone on a plant 10 years ago. I took that out of the exhibition because I thought this is not feasible to charge your mobile phone on plants. But then 3 years later, someone in Wageningen did a PhD on charging mobile phones on plants. So
you're like, damn.
Damn, I took it out. I thought this was just bullshit. Yeah, and it's now being introduced, well, in domains like, for instance, in rural areas in Africa, if you don't have money for a solar panel, but you have a field of crops, then yes, you can take some electricity from these crops. So this became feasible now.
Really? I thought it was like the high school science projects that you see in kids' TV shows.
Yes.
Where you put 2 wires in a potato and like, whoa, it works.
Yeah.
But then actually, I would really like that if I could just put a plant in my room and then hook my phone up to it and it would be charged.
But then you still need to water the plants. I'm not sure how you're about it, but I always forget it.
Yeah, well, we also have a scenario where you charge your mobile phone with your own belly fat.
Ah, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that looks disgusting.
Yeah. And then I always ask people like, hey, would you buy this? And typically you see a lot of hands being raised because... And it makes sense, overweight is an issue in our society, although there are 1 billion people in the world who do not have enough food, but there are also 1 billion people who have, too much food in their body. And to charge your mobile phone from your own belly fat, it sounds ridiculous. But then again, we have so many electronic devices around us, on our body, perhaps in due time in our body. So to connect it to the metabolism of your own body, I think in a certain point in this century that will happen. It just makes sense. Phones, they use only very little energy if you look at it. So with 1 kilogram of fat, you can charge your mobile phone almost a year. It's incredible. But when you start charging your electric car with your own belly fat, then your belly will be empty very, very soon.
Let's get to the 6-pack, people.
Yeah.
I guess in a society where weight loss is seen as a really important factor, it would probably attract a lot of people.
Yeah.
You could have like the Apple belly belt or something, or the eye belt. So, that doesn't sound good. Koert, you mentioned that you are a radar for possible futures. That's Next Nature Network. And you mentioned that just before we recorded, you mentioned that you're working on a time machine in virtual reality. Now, apart from what that is, could you explain how that is a thing that comes up on this radar that you are?
Yes, this is a project that I started together with artist and filmmaker Floris Kaayk, and I worked with him many times already. That's a creative wizard that I know for quite a while. And in this case, Floris got the idea. So he said, I want to do something new with stop motion video and then going into the future. Yeah, we explored that, and now we are building a time machine that moves you in the future faster and faster and faster. So you accelerate into the future, powers of 10. You will at first see the clouds moving. So it's just a normal day. You're in the field and the clouds move, but it goes faster and faster. So at a certain moment you see the climate moving. That's a big discussion now. But after that you see geology moving, because mountains also move. They just move very slow, but they move.
Okay.
But if you speed up, then they will move. And after that, at a certain point, you see the solar system moving because you are traveling into time at that incredible speed. So yeah, we're building that now. And yeah, it will be launched end of 2021. We launch it, and it will be quite a trip, I hope.
Cool. So what is your vision that the user should take out from this experience?
What I want with it is to introduce people into extreme long-term thinking. It's quite relevant. We all, as human beings, we have quite a short lifespan, if you look at it. And so our reach in space and time is in fact limited. And then if you think about climate change, then you have some time awareness. You don't only think about today and maybe the next day, but you also think about further down the line, and maybe also for the next generation. You can go further down the line if you think extremely long-term thinking. Then these questions on how is humanity and its presence on the planet, how is it transforming the planet in a way that's also desirable for future generations. So that kind of sensibility is also in the project.
There's this theory that humans have a linear thinking ability, and a lot of developments are starting to become exponential, such as a virus spreading, but also the development of technology. Does it have to do something with making people aware or able to more exponentially think or more long-term think?
Yeah, I think that's connected. Yes, there's a certain mismatch between our biology and how we as humans think. So we also need to catch up there. And I try to contribute with my little tiny time machine project.
Speaking of getting a message to a large audience, nice little bridge there. We saw that Next Stage Network consists of, let's say, a few parts or groups. First, there's your team with designers, editors, managers, etc. Then there's fellows, which we think are people that use your philosophy in their own work and subjects. And then lastly, you have ambassadors with people like Jason Silva, Bas Haring, and André Kuipers even. Why do you work with ambassadors, and what do you use them for?
The purpose in general is to connect people around the topic and the theme, the way of looking at the world. Ideally, if you would put them on another planet and not talk to them anymore, they would still work and think in a next nature kind of way. That's also something that you cannot entirely grasp. You have to feel it, because if you would write it down in a protocol, you will flatten it and it will be boring. That's how we also together decide and explore what this next nature is. That's why we make the network of fellows and ambassadors. So there are more designers among the fellows, I think, and they want to get active into projects. And ambassadors typically are more the people who also help the story further in society. So someone like André Kuipers, he's extremely busy. He will maybe not have time to dive into a project together, but still he knows the philosophy and he subscribes to it and also shares it. And sometimes helps us with things. While I'm giving the example, I already realized, now we're also working with André on a project, so it's not a golden rule.
What project? Can you share that, or is it secret?
No, it's not secret, because it's a project that André initiated himself, because he wanted to give, basically everyone, but specifically young children, the overview effect. And the idea of the overview effect, that's something that astronauts have when they send you into space. And then at a certain moment you are there then in the International Space Station and you look at Earth and you have the overview. You see there this blue dot in space and everything is on it, all the countries, all the rich people, all the poor people, all the powerful people, all the less powerful people. They're all on that one blue dot. And there you apparently I have never been in space. Only 600 people have been in space. They talk about the overview effect, and André wants to share that also, especially to, I think, around 8 to 10-year-old kids, because it has been researched that at that age, these kind of experiences are very meaningful for the rest of your career. So he built a virtual spaceship where also children can get an astronaut program and then step into it's called the Spacebus. You can look it up. There they have the experience of being blasted into space and having the overview effect. And then they come back and they have to live accordingly.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
Yeah. Is that also the project that you're working on with him, or is that something completely different?
Well, the Spacebus is already an ongoing project, so that's already visiting schools.
Oh, cool.
And I think not so much universities, unfortunately.
Aw, come on.
But yeah.
I want to go on the Spacebus.
Yeah. I see there your inner child reaching out yours. Yes,
That's very strong. My inner child.
that's good. You should feed your inner child enough. It's important.
Okay, but on a more serious note, we noticed that philosophy is quite important in the work that you do.
Yes.
And I was wondering, I've been told, it's good if all students would learn ethics, or if all students would learn logic, just as a basic philosophy lesson. I was wondering if you have a vision on why I, or me, or Bram should start studying philosophy as industrial design students.
Well, the short answer is, you work at the forefront of new technology and bringing new technologies into society, because that's what industrial designers do. Maybe you are not the one inventing the fundamental scientific thing that sometimes that's a physicist or other discipline, but to make the step from the invention to a product or a service that moves into society, that's where industrial designers play an important role. And I think there also, because of that, you have more awareness of the societal impact. And that's already there. But to make this awareness more refined and explicit, a course in ethics or philosophy can be really helpful.
Okay, so basically to refine our vision on what might be the impact of the technology that we're developing as designers.
Yeah, I think that's the first reason why you would need it, because this is also quite urgent. You have a lot of impact in the lives of people. These people have less education than you. They have less knowledge. For them, it's almost like a wave of technology that's just hitting them, and you are surfing the wave. This could help you steer the wave in a good way for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Is that also what you taught at the University of Eindhoven? Because you said you were a teacher there.
Well, I'm still connected to Eindhoven University, but only as a fellow. And now my task is more to make the connection between the activities within the university. And I do that across all departments. So still industrial design, but also biomedical science or electrical engineering. I have connections in all the departments. And I try to make the connections between the university and society. That's what I do now. But until a few years ago, I was running in Eindhoven at the Industrial Design Department, 80 students and 10 teachers, researchers in it. And that was called Next Nature Lab. So that was already in the same realm that I'm still working. But for me, it was just a practical decision of running the foundation or running the department. I was doing both, and that was a bit, becoming too much. So I was basically the child in the bakery store where you have all the nice cakes and you want to eat them all. But if you eat them all, you will have a stomach ache. You will just get sick. So you have to make a decision like, okay, I have to leave that cake. I pick this cake now.
Oh, but I'm actually very curious about that, because I think I'm a child in a bakery as well, because I want everything.
Well, good for you.
I've got like 80,000 different interests.
Yeah, how do you do it?
Yeah, how do you choose? No, I don't do it. I have to choose, I'm having a hard time choosing, and I think there's a lot of people that might have this. So how do you choose?
Okay, I can share you some about my own experience because indeed this is extremely difficult to choose between two nice things. At first, it's already wonderful to experience the abundance of that you have choices between different things that you can do and that you can add something. Not everyone, I can tell you, not everyone has this feeling in life. Some people really don't know what they want, they really don't know what to do, or they don't know what they can add, or they don't know what they like. But yeah, if you know what you like, what you love, that's a good thing. If you know what you can add for the world or other people, that's a good thing. If you know where you are good at, that's a good thing. And then last is if you know where you can earn an income with, that's a good thing. And well, if you have all four of these, so if you do what you like or what you're good at and it's valuable for other people and you can also earn a living with it, well, that's perfect. So if you have to choose between the two cakes, then yeah, you have to ask yourself the question, is this what I like? Is it what I'm good at? Is it where I can add something? Does it help me make a living? This is the cake for me now. And that's also a short-term decision, but also a long-term decision. So I often eat cakes that don't give me the highest income today or the biggest reward today. But I sense I want to do it because it gives a big reward tomorrow or the day after. And I must say, I've never been disappointed in this. To give you one more example, I studied computer science and also graduated in computer science. But in parallel, I decided to do art school because I wanted the visual creativity. Well, but with art school, you will not make a living, right? That's everyone knows it's very difficult. And when I graduated in computer science, then that was in the time that if you were a computer scientist, well, they would just drag you out of the university in the company and give you a good salary and a good job. We were at that time even invited to take a trip in a balloon. It was sponsored by this company. And then while you had the trip in the balloon, they would have a conversation if you wanted to work in their company. It was that crazy.
That's a good in-house day.
Yeah, so that it was also like, sugaring, and they wanted to grab the good computer scientist students. So yeah, taking a trip in a balloon, that's a nice cake, you say. Like somehow I never went into that balloon because I knew that they were giving me a job that was just putting me in a computer science domain only. And I wanted to also work broader and do more other creative things. So I was not going to work at a bank doing their automation of their banking system. That was not a job for me. So then, also did not go into the balloon because I already know that the balloon trip was leading me to a path that was not for me. So sometimes you also have to leave a cake if it's only giving you a sugar rush, you know. The metaphor goes quite far. Then it's maybe not the right cake. Then maybe you should go for the carrot cake. That is a bit...
Choose that vegan cake.
Vegan, healthy cake that gives you good food long term. Yeah.
So did you at a certain moment have that revelation that you thought, this is what I'm really good at and this is how I'm going to achieve it? Or was that something that you just found along the way?
Yeah, it's also along the way. Yeah, so I think it's important to have trust in your own skills and trust in your own learning ability, because at a certain point, look at what am I good at, but sometimes also important, what do I aspire to become good at? And that's also an energy that you should follow, because then you continue learning. And I can tell you, I still do it. I sometimes try to get out of my comfort zone and try to get into something that I'm not good at just yet. But I think it's valuable to become good at. So in that sense, to live a lifelong learning, it's a cliche. But it's very true. And while you're in your study, then basically you're doing the honeymoon, you know, because that's the official part of your life where you are learning. And learning is at the forefront of what you do. And you get the time for it. Yeah, when you're done with it, you will develop, you will grow. And there are lots of opportunities, always.
One of the things... Like speaking of things that I'm not really good at yet, I read the article of Vivian Ming on the Next Nature Network website, which is about why she's turning her son with autism into a cyborg. I found that both horrific and, well, at the end, I was it was less horrific and more interesting. But it made me think about, it sounds a bit cheesy when you say it made me think about artificial intelligence. But I was thinking... she mentions a lot of developments in artificial intelligence, and it's one of the things that is about to have a huge impact on society, on life, on human beings as a concept. But I didn't learn anything about it during industrial design engineering. And I was wondering, do you have an opinion on how problematic it is that I, as an industrial design engineer, have not learned anything about artificial intelligence?
Oh, yes, I find that super problematic and disturbing. I'm also surprised because if you would start that course now, would it be the same? I would guess not. What I know is that some of the researchers and teachers and coaches that work there now are really diving into this, also together with students. So to give you an example, I know that Professor Stefan Wensveen, who graduated in industrial design a long time ago in Delft and now is a professor at industrial design in Eindhoven. He's doing this whole research about the aesthetics of artificial intelligence, which is super interesting, and also a designer's perspective on this artificial intelligence, which is a field that is typically run by, computer scientists. They have a lot that they can do, but if we as human beings start to relate with artificial intelligence, and that's already the case, we all feel it in our lives, like, whoa, that this can work, that this happens, and it's a big development. We're basically wearing our brain outside our skull, We are extending, like in the Industrial Revolution, our muscle power became partly obsolete because machines were way more powerful, and now our cognition or our thinking power is also, becoming obsolete, or at least changing, because we are extending it into all these machines that we then live with. And how do we interact with these other intelligence? There are lots of design questions there. So I know that it's being worked on now by professors, the design professors as well. But I think it's fair also that sometimes we're leaping behind. And an educational system is sometimes also leaping behind on what is happening. This is also interesting in the relationship between a teacher and a student. Students know more about what's new than the teachers, because the teachers they have the knowledge from yesterday and they are teaching it. So in your studies you did not learn about artificial intelligence. Did you complain about it at the time, or did you try to put it on the table, or was there an opportunity there? Or?
No, I've studied it myself in summer holidays because I'm a huge nerd.
Yeah.
I'm a huge nerd, so that's why
okay.
That happened. But no, I never. The question itself just occurred to me this morning when I read the article, and then I realized, wait, I didn't learn anything about any of these technologies in my studies, which I find very strange because so much is about to happen there, and I feel like I might not be prepared to participate in that.
Yeah, I also recognize that the tradition of design and industrial design is also that we make these beautiful, ergonomic, useful objects. But nowadays it's all about systems, services. It's not always something you can grasp. Yeah, so how should the profession also transform itself to remain relevant in this future where artificial intelligence is becoming only more dominant?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, does that then mean that if I, as an industrial design engineer, don't hop on the train of artificial intelligence, that I will get left behind?
I wouldn't make it that black and white that you will be left behind, because you also have to hop on a train that's moving in the direction you want to go. And what you sometimes see is that if you are left behind long enough, sometimes you become relevant again.
Okay.
If you look at certain crafts, for instance, to really have extreme knowledge about how to make with certain materials an object, a product.
Glass blowers, for example.
Glass blowers, that's a good example. Yeah, they were left behind ages ago, but now we rediscover them and they become relevant again in a different kind of setting. So I would not be worried about being left behind, but you have to be keen on where do you want to go, and that's it's your decision and it's for you to steer. And if you steer it properly, then there are good spaces all around, I think. Also in the traditional approach.
Phew, luckily. The final question that I think we posed every episode so far, I hope, because we haven't recorded all of them yet, but is what advice would you have to an industrial design student studying industrial design right now?
Well, my advice is very short. You are now in your studies. You are in your honeymoon. Treat your studies also as a honeymoon in which you can be open, you can be eager. You have now the time to learn and to grow in your studies. And specifically in an industrial design studies, you are connected to many other disciplines and you are connected to society. So this also gives you, while it's your honeymoon, a great responsibility for the future to make the most out of all these connections that you have and to push them to the next level. It's not easy, but it's also an opportunity that you are in that position.
Okay. Well, thank you very much then.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah.
With that final advice, I'd say everyone listening, get back to your honeymoon. Get back to being open-minded. Thank you for being open-minded to another episode of the Icarus Idea. If you have learned anything, if you have any questions, anything you'd like to share or know from us, we've got Instagram, as always, the Icarus Idea. You can contact us at any time. And with that being said, Koert, thank you very much for your time and for your very inspirational stories, ideas, everything. Thanks very much.
Thank you as well. It was a great pleasure to be in this conversation together.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks.
Great to hear.